Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Empowered to Live, the place where faith meets purpose and purpose fuels freedom. I am your host, Andrea Rose Butler, and today we wrap up our series that we've been talking about identity and becoming. And so this brings everything together. So becoming is not a moment, it's a lifestyle. And I share it all the time that, we are on a journey to reach our purpose. We are on a journey to get to the place where God has called us to. And a lot of times, there are detours, there are things that get in our way. We've been talking about this, our story, how we got where we are right now in life, whether our story was interrupted through trauma, through our own decisions, whatever happens that brought us to this space that we're in today. We are going to talk about how becoming, we're walking it out daily. So again, it's not, we don't arrive, but we are being transformed, we're being changed. And change is a process. And sometimes it can be a slow, painful process to change because we want to get there fast. We want, like, let's do this. I want to, get where I'm going. I want to arrive, whether it's you're on a weight loss journey, whether you're trying to get back to school, whatever, I want to graduate, I want to get done. But everything is a process. Everything is a process, and that process takes time. And people share that butterfly analogy all the time, that that butterfly is in that cocoon, and it's fighting in that cocoon to try and break out. And it is in the struggle that that cocoon develops strength. And but if we assist that butterfly to escape the struggle that it's in, then its wings never fully develop, and it will die very quickly. And so sometimes we're in that space where we're like, I want out. I want it to be all done. But God has us in this place, in this space where the things that we are experiencing are the things that's going to strengthen us. It's the things that are preparing us for the journey that we're on. Just like, if you're running a marathon or you're entering a race, or, and if you're walking it, they tell you that you need to run further than the race in order for you to prepare for the race. Because if you go further than the actual end goal, then you've built endurance, and you know that you can complete it because you've ran the whole thing. You've completed more than what is required. And so the same for you on your journey. You may think, Lord, I just want to be finished. I want this. I want to be all done. I want to be stronger. I want to do all these things. Um, but it's a journey. It's a daily step of walking it out. It's not about perfection. We're not going to fully arrive in our destination. Everything's be perfect. We're like, oh yeah, I've done it all. No, a journey. And I want you to enjoy the journey, even when it's traumatic, whether it's hard. You are growing, you're getting strengthened. And so, James tells us to not only be a hearer or listen to the word, but we have to do what it says. And that doing is sometimes the difficult part for us. I know it's for me, sometimes it's hard. When I was telling a friend, she was just like, oh, I need to be more patient. I said, then if that prayer that you're asking, you want more patience. I said, patience come with trial, because he wants to teach you. You're going to find yourself in situations where you're like, oh my God, why am I here? Because you asked for patience. God, I want strength. It comes with trials. Um, and I want to love more. God is going to put some unlovable people in your life for you to walk that out of. I want to love more. It's going to require you to go through some things. And so be prepared that whatever you're asking God for, there is a test that you will need to pass, and there is going to be some difficult days that's going to happen until that in that journey to becoming, it happens again through daily decisions. I'm going to get up, I'm going to keep moving. Not I'm going to stand still and I'm just going to pray about it. But it's every decision that we make. And so we have to make that choice every day that we wake up. What's your decision? What are you going to do? Many of y'all know that I'm in school, and I haven't been to school in a long time. And so every day I have to say, you know, you have homework to do. Whether or not I feel like I need to do it, I got to get in there, log in 2 days and do my homework, do whatever. And so it's a process, a daily decision that I have to say, if you want to complete this course, you're going to need to do the homework. You're going to have to put the work in. You're going to need to get up, make the decision whether or not I feel like it or not, whether or not I want to or not. This course is not going to finish itself. Doing this podcast, the same thing. I have to prepare, you know, um, weeks in advance of the show to get ready for it, to know what I'm going to be talking about, what do I need. And so it's a decision. It's a decision to do this, to get on here and to record and to do everything. So it's daily making those choices. Again, consistent habit. Guys, coming up June 4th, 2 years. Can you believe it? It'll be 2 years since this podcast has been in existence. Why? Consistency. Again, on days when I didn't feel like it, on days when I found, especially when I was just on Facebook Live, that was definitely. I mean, you guys have seen some of these episodes. I was Facebook Live. I was on StreamYard yet. I was out. We were out. I was sitting in my car because I had to get done. We were sitting out. I went out and time changed, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I had to excuse myself and find a quiet spot to record. I had, things that I had committed to before I started the podcast that conflicted with that time. So I had to make decisions. So because I was live, I was Facebook Live. So now I can pre-record when I have things that happen, because I'm grown in that. But it's called consistent habits. You got to do it. And the same thing with exercising. You guys know I started back into my exercise journey every day. I'm out here pushing, and I have an app that reminds me that I need to do my workout, and so I do consistent habits of doing it. It's not going to happen overnight. Daily decisions, consistent habits, faithful steps when you don't feel like it. God, give me the strength to do what I know I need to do, because it's required, to get up, to push forward, and to do what you need to do. Again, faithful steps. I don't understand what's happening. I don't even know if I'm making the right decision right now, but I'm going to take that step because I believe. And so I'm going to do that. And again, we're not looking for perfection. I've shared the mess ups of this podcast, the decisions that I made, the things was like, I didn't know. But I took the faithful steps. It wasn't perfect sometimes. And, people may judge, whatever, but I'm being consistent. And it's about putting into practice every day, practices. So what are some of the things that keep us from doing that? Perfectionism. We wanted to be perfect. I told you all before, before I started the podcast, I had the idea and this dream to do it, but I was looking for perfection. I wanted the right equipment. I needed to know how to get the show together. I wanted so much stuff. I wanted the backgrounds. I wanted this. I wanted that. Right now, I'm not at home. As y'all know, I'm in Los Estados Unidos, here in the United States, back in Virginia. And so I'm using this virtual background. It drives me a little crazy because when I move my hand and the lights, and I'm just like, you know what? It is what it is. And so, being wanting things to be perfect is not going to be perfect. All you have to do is start. Start that journey. Overthinking. Oh my gosh. That's me. Get out my head. This is where I live. I'm like, no, stop overthinking, and think about, what if I do this, or what about this, or what if it fails, or what about that, and what about this and that, and we go and we're like thinking about, what's contingency, when I do this, or that, but if that doesn't work, well, what else I can do? And we start overthinking, and we know that we have that paralysis of analysis, and we keep trying to figure things out, trying to work it out before we even take the first step of doing it. And once you start that journey, you make that step, you make that decision to move forward, then things will begin to move in the direction that you wanted to go. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to start. You just have to get going and do it. Fear of failure. Mistakes are going to happen because you're learning. Things are not going to be perfect and you're going to make mistakes. But one of the things, and I've shared this before, that failure is not failure. It's only failure if you stop. You make a mistake and you throw your hands up and like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to do this. I messed up. And so therefore I'm not going to do anymore. Then that's when you have failed, when you've given up. But when you do something that's not right, you're like, okay, so now I've learned what doesn't work. And now I can move forward because now I know what to do. I told y'all, I've shared a message of this podcast when I didn't know what I was doing. And I was sharing with my nephew, I said, my first month of podcasts are gone because I didn't recognize, when I was doing Facebook Live, there was a certain way you had to save it, and I didn't do that. And so they're they're just gone. And it is what it is. If you caught it when it was there, hallelujah. And if you didn't catch it, it is gone. Now I have backup of the backups on YouTube channel. It's on Facebook. It's saved in StreamYard. It's got all these different things and so many precautions in place. And I could have said, you know what, I messed up. Those are gone. I don't know what I'm doing. Just forget it. I knew I wasn't good at this. And I'm like, nobody's going to listen. Nobody's watching. Nobody cares. And so we can get into that space again, in that overthinking mindset, where we start rehearsing all the negative things that could be and could go wrong, and we feel that we have failed because something didn't go right the way we wanted it to do. And I told you that one of the things that kind of freed me up was you know an acquaintance. She went live, and I follow her, and so she went live, and I was like, oh, let me hop on and see what she's doing. I can listen to her, whatever. And she was in her car, and she went live on Facebook. And while she's doing it, she like dropped her phone, and things were upside down, and she just kept right on talking. She picked her phone back up. She was kept on going, and I was just like, "Oh, see, that was me. I would have shut down things. I would have been done." But she just kept right on talking, and people just kept like engaging with her, and all these different things. And it was just like, wow, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to, she dropped her phone. She could have been like, oh, I'm done, because what? Phone's upside, everything is upside down. We're seeing the underside of her car, all these different things that happen. And she's trying to pick it back up, and it's slipping away from her. And we can see this because her phone is she's live. It's not like she could edit. And she is live on Facebook. But she kept right on going. She kept talking. She kept laughing. She was laughing, and I was like, "Okay, we're just gonna roll with you, and we're gonna laugh with you because it is what it is, and it happened. And so don't worry about it." One of the things that hinders inconsistency. When you're hit or missing, people don't know how to trust you. You fail. You see yourself too. You're like, oh, well, I can't do it today. I know I'm supposed to do this, but then I don't. Consistency is the game. When we are inconsistent, we hinder ourselves. Faithful steps. Again, whether or not it looks good to anyone else, it looks good to God because he's seen you make that journey. He's seen you make that step. And he was just like, you're faithful over the little. I can trust you with the big stuff. And so we just need to work on it. So focus on, again, on the small steps. What is something small? You all know my favorite saying: the journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first step. So what's that first small, faithful step that you can do to get you where you need to go, whatever it is? How can you get that journey going on that small step? What's a small thing you could do today? You guys know I'm working on my first novel, and some of the stuff was going on the way. I had my thesis to write. All the things was going on, health issues, all that stuff. And so I put it aside for a little bit. Then the other day I picked it back up, and I think I've written almost close to 3,000 words. I just begin to just sit down. Last night I did like 400 or whatever. The other day I think I did like 30. And I was just like, I can't think right now. My brain is just, I couldn't think. And so I was just like, you know what, at least let me put something, some words on the paper. And we're making this some editing. I know they tell you don't edit while you're working, but my OCD won't let me not do it. So that's what I did. I made some small step. 30 words is 30 words. I saw somebody posting, I think it's in the author's thread on Threads, and she was just like, 10 words is better than zero. And I concur. Do something, even if you write 10 words, you put the work in. That's small, and just focusing on that. If you can't do, you can't sit down and do 1,000 words, that's fine. Make it every day, consistent daily decision. I'm going to write today. I'm going to do this today. Put a calendar reminder on your phone so that it notifies you at a certain time when you know that you can focus, and you can do it when you know you have some time that you can sit down and do it. I shared with y'all before, I have stuff on my phone. So when I'm in the bathroom, I'm a captive audience. I can write on my phone. So take that moment to do that. If you have a lunch break, eat for 15 minutes, write for 15 minutes. You want to do this, take your lunch break, whatever time you have, 30 minutes, an hour. The first half is you eat because you need to sustain yourself, because that's self-care. And then the other half, enroll in school, take a class, do whatever, small steps, something. What can you do today to push you further into what you know that you've been called to do? What's that goal that you've had, that you've been holding on to? And you're like, I don't have time. We all have time. The question is, are you willing to take the time to do what you need to do so that you can get the results that you need? Instead of saying, "What I don't have," you have the time. You just need to make the time, because we do things that are important to us. And how many time wasters do we have? How much time you spend scrolling on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Those are just stealing from the purpose for which you were called. And I be on social media when I have to, because I need to respond to the comments that come in on my social media, because I want to take the time to do that, to respond myself. But then also, sometimes I dead scroll, and I'm guilty of that, and I'll be honest. But then I also remember that there are things that I need to do, that I need to stay focused on, and I need to do that. And so I need to building some spiritual habits as well into getting you where you need to go in a journey of becoming. You need that foundation of spiritual habits. I met a young lady today. We had a wonderful conversation, and she's got a thing called Ministry Mail. And she talks about the four pillars that she works with on how to move us from just being hearers of the word into doers, because sometimes we get stuck, and we don't understand how the word of God works, and what are some practical things that we can do, because there are practical things in the Bible. It's not just spiritual. Not until I said, a lot of times, as Christians, we can be very preachy, cliquey, cliche. We got a lot of Christian cliches that people don't understand, and we say those things, and we put them out there so that we don't have to do the work. We put it back in God, and so therefore I don't have a responsibility to it. As Scripture says, not just be a hearer, but do a doer also. Faith without works is dead. So you're believing for something, but you don't want to do the work, you're not going to get there. We have to do, it's faith coupled with works is what brings about results. What part can I do? What am I responsible for? Pastor says that we're responsible for the effort, but God is responsible for the outcome. But if we don't put in any effort, there's not going to be an outcome, because God's not going to force you into walking in your purpose. He's going to open doors. He's going to put you in positions. He's going to put you in places. He's going to give you ideas, all these different things. But if you don't act on it, then we say, well, I was waiting on God. No, God's waiting on you. He's been waiting on you. And you're like, God, I need this. I want you to do this. And God said, okay, you can finish the command I gave you 10 years ago. I need to do that first, because everything hinges on your lack of obedience here. And so when we build those habits of saying, okay, I need to be responsible in this area, and I need to do what he told me to do first, then that's where we need to go. What am I doing? Where am I inconsistent? And we check ourselves. And that's something I had to work on myself. I shared before, I can be a major procrastinator, especially when something feels hard. And sometimes, And I know in my mind, I was like, I know I need to do this. However, comma, I don't. And so I'm like, oh, I'll do this tomorrow. I'll do it later. No, do it now. And so that's something that I'm working on and still that when I know I need to do something and say, when I do this app, no, it's on your mind right now. This is the time to do it. Not waiting for, oh, I do it later because we know if you're like me, later never comes. And so therefore, and henceforth, I need to, be able to do the things that I need to do and do it now instead of waiting and putting it off. I need to say, okay, I need to make that phone call now. Not, oh, well, let me go do this and and then I come back and I'm like, "Ah, I forgot. I'll do it tomorrow. And then something else gets in the way. And that may be you. You've been knowing that you need to do something and you're like, oh, I'll do it later. Your later is now. So I'm calling you to the carpet. Your later is now. It's time to do it now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not after you do this. The kids are playing, the kids are in school, husband's at work, you're on your break, you're on your phone. Make the phone call. You have the small computer in your hand. Get on the internet and do what you know you need to do. And so I'm calling you to that, just like I've been calling myself out and say, no, don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till, you're thinking about it. This is the time to do it and not worry about it. So staying consistent. And then if you mess up, because we're all going to mess up, give yourself grace. Give yourself grace to say, you know what, I didn't get it 100% right. And we're never going to be 100%. We may be 99.5, but there's always that, because again, no one is perfect. And so we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for you putting in the effort to do what you know you're supposed to do. Effort. So do the work, no matter how hard, no matter how challenging it is or can be, or it appears to be. Because sometimes, again, when we overthink, we tell ourselves, oh, it's going to be so hard. This is going to happen. People aren't going to do this, that, and the whole litany. I told you, I'm a writer and I can write some drama in my head that never happens. I tell myself this whole story. I wrote a whole screenplay in my head of what people are going to say, what they're going to do, how I'm going to react, how this is going to happen, and then get to the space and it never happens. And I psych myself out, stress myself out, and what I imagine never happened. And sometimes it's a better outcome than I could even imagine. But I did it. And I learned to give myself grace even in those moments when I find myself overthinking. One of the things my daughter was sharing about doing a brain dump. And she uses Chat GPT, and you can use whatever AI software you want to do. And she's just like, hey, um, I need to do a brain dump. And she hit that record, that mic, and just start talking and just talk through all the stuff that's in your head. Get it out. Maybe you will need to write it out. Whatever you need to do when you get those overthinking and those scenarios pop up, do a brain dump, and then look at it and be like, okay, why did you think that? It's in your head. You might as well just get it out. Get it out of your mind. Get it out, because then it comes back over and over again. And so we need to work on that. And so that's something that I'm learning to do in those moments where I may feel overwhelmed or disappointed, or I feel like, okay, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how it's going to work out. So let me talk it through. Find that trusted friend. Use AI if you need to, Google, Gemini, whatever, the recorder on your phone, and just talk it through and then listen to it and be like, okay, that didn't make sense. And so give yourself grace. And then, sometimes there may be a kernel of truth that you need to work through in the things that you're saying. So challenge time, guys. So take one consistent action daily in the coming week, starting today. Take that one. What's one thing you can do consistently? Like I said, set a reminder on your phone. Set a timer, a calendar invite. Whatever reminder apps you have that you can say, hey, remind me daily at this time when you're free. Don't set those times when you're like, you're sleeping, you're at work, you're busy. Don't do that to yourself. Don't self-sabotage, but set a reminder for yourself to say, I need to do this every day. Remind me to do this, so you can be, and then you start building that habit, and then you won't even need reminders anymore, because then you're just doing it, and you're building up that consistency. Small steps, you know baby steps get on the bus. So start putting those baby steps in, and doing it, being faithful in those things. And once you start doing and making those steps, God will grace you with the strength, the wisdom, the courage, the boldness. Sometimes we're afraid to make those steps because we're like, what if? But what if it works out? That's what you need to tell yourself. What if it works out? Instead of what if it fails? Well, what if it works out? And move in that vein, because again, you're learning. Again, one of my favorite scriptures: whatsoever the righteous does will prosper. So even when it looks like failure, I'm prospering because I am righteous. And therefore it's prospering me in the long run, because I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm building and I'm understanding more, and there's growth that's happening. So I want to encourage you in that. For my journals, or even just as part of the challenge, what does becoming look like for you right now? What would that look like for you? What is that one step that will move you further and closer to that journey of becoming? And what habits support that? What are you doing right now that you've been consistent with? Celebrate that as well. When we have those big win moments, celebrate. Throw yourself a party. And if you just get yourself a cupcake, a little ice cream thing, or whatever, drink some juice, whatever you need to do to celebrate. Um, Sing to yourself about, I did it. You made it. So celebrate. And then what's one more step that you can take? So maybe you've been consistent, but there's another step that you need to take that you have not yet taken. So what's another step? So you've already started, you've built a foundation. What's the next brick that you can lay on that foundation to get you into building and into becoming who or what you need to do and be? Because you're already there. Our chief cornerstone, which is Christ, has already been laid. It's already there. So he set the bar, the one that's going to hold you up, is already in place. So now it's for you to make that step, that faithful step, to get where you need to go. So again, reminder that becoming is not a destination; it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey of becoming. It's a lifelong journey of changing. So as you're going from faith to faith, from experience to experience, you're growing, you're changing, you're evolving into who that you were created to be. And you want to walk into that, and that's where the joy is found, is in you taking those faithful steps and walking in the purpose for which you were created for and to be. And so I just want to encourage you in that. It's not going to be, you're not going to arrive, but it's getting your life in alignment there. It's in that journey of becoming. And I also wanted to share, so thank you all again for joining me on today for this another episode of Empower to Live. And I want to share this with you guys, that if you would like to support the work that I do, some of these things cost. So if you would like to support me, you can go to this website, and it says, buy me a cup of tea. And so that, and so I appreciate if you're able to do anything you're able to do to help. That would be awesome and amazing. And I appreciate you all if you do. I appreciate you if you don't. Just the fact that you watch and that you're here with me week after week. I so appreciate you for doing that. Next week, we start our new series because we're in a new month. And we're talking about walking in purpose from becoming to living. So how do we live it out? I was sharing with a lady today, and I told her, I said, I said, I no longer said I'm a survivor of things. I'm a thriver. So I'm thriving. I said, I'm thriving beyond domestic violence. I'm thriving beyond sexual assault. I'm thriving beyond breast cancer. I'm thriving beyond a life that should have been limited. So I don't say that I just survived. Surviving means, yes, I'm here, but then how do I build on that where I'm just not just making it through, because surviving can keep you stuck as well. But that's a whole nother subject for another day. But we're talking about, walking in purpose from becoming to living. So I want you to be living out your purpose. So how do we get there from that journey? Because again, becoming is not a destination. It is a journey. It's a lifelong journey of transformation, of empowerment, and of experience building on each other and going from faith to faith. So again, I want to thank you all as we wrap up this evening's Empowered to Live podcast. I will see you all next week. Like they used to say, same bad time, same bad channel. And you'll have a wonderful and great evening and stay empowered.